some of these people have left the country.
Wow.
So
hold on. The crew, the skateboard crew, and some of those guys?
I know a couple people who have already left the country, and it's not necessarily because they were.
I love that. Steve Bannon just being like, wait, what? What's the skateboard crew, Tim? What are you talking about? Now, I got to talk about Steve Bannon. I'm sorry. I'm not entirely sure what transpired here, but Steve Bannon has appeared on Tim Pool's show a number of times. He's back to talk about the future. Steve Bannon, I know a lot of the resistance wanted to write off Steve Bannon, especially during the early days of Trump, as just being, formaldehyde-ridden, drunkard who is an old racist, an old-timey racist coming to blather on, just basically making fun of the guy and not taking him seriously. And I think that was a very dangerous thing on the part of both myself and the resistance, because while his outward presentation can leave a little bit to be desired, and I don't mean that in that like I'm judging his looks or I think he's ugly or something like that. I mean that in that he doesn't look like someone who would be quite as Machiavellian as Steve Bannon has been, or quite as let's just say well thought out in terms of a schemer as Steve Bannon has been. But Steve Bannon has been doing this for a very long time. He has very, very strong ideological positions. He is a prolific documentarian filmmaker, if you want to use that term again in the loosest possible sense. I believe he's made over 9 full feature-length documentaries. They are all nightmare fuel of the highest order in that, they're not so much disturbing as they are boring and very, very prone to sentiments of hardcore nationalism. He is a nationalist, and he wants America, as well as Britain, as well as every other proud Western nation, to engage in a form of patriotic nationalism that will be devout, in the case of both countries, to Western civilization and upholding that. Now, he is making predictions right now that Donald Trump is going to return. We're getting return of the Trump, and is obviously going to be working behind the scenes to make that happen. Now, if we had different Democratic politicians running as president, I might not be as worried. I honestly would still be more worried if there was someone who was more competent than Trump, and who was more calculated, I'll say, than Trump. There are elements of Trump that still do not frighten me, and that happens to be mostly related to, again, his super ego and at times incompetence, and just, I'd say, incredible paranoia. Is a weakness that is easily exploitable with someone like Trump. Everyone who is supposed to be loyal to him ends up betraying him because he has no loyalty and betrays everyone else, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, what's the alternative going to be? Joe Biden is either going to be running, or now we're floating the idea of, Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg for some reason, in some weird, you don't have to re-elect Biden, you get to elect new and younger, unpopular politicians.
Come, Trump. You think Trump's running again?
I know he's running again. He's going to win again.
So Trump's running.
He's going to win the presidency for the 3rd time. Can I say that on YouTube? He's going to win the presidency. He's going to win the presidency for the 3rd time in 2024.
Well, Trump is not the president. Joe Biden is the president.
An illegitimate president.
And if Donald Trump runs again, do you think India comes and works with them? We know that Modi and Trump were good friends.
Yes, and they're both nationalists. And I think that yes, Modi and Trump. The biggest event Trump's ever had in the country was Howdy Modi.
I gotta say, I mean, like, I do appreciate, like, not the mask off, because I don't think he really wears a mask, and that is like at least a benefit to anyone who analyzes Bannon, because he will actually say a lot of these things out loud, the things that most people would kind of like tiptoe around. But that, yes, myself, Trump are nationalists, as is Modi, as you know. I mean, Modi is a horrifying leader in all respects. Just an absolute brutal authoritarian who has been clamping down on the Muslim population of India with a ferocity that is horrifying, to say the very least.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Jeff_Waldorf, thanks for the raiding party of 18. Hello, Raiders. We're just in the middle of watching Bannon's newest appearance on The Tim Pool Show. But yes, if you would do me a favor, everyone, please go to Jeff_Waldorf and give him a follow back.
Down, I think it was in Houston, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Modi and Trump are very close. And not just that, we're closely aligned. Right? He understands that Trump is the one person who's ever stood up to the Chinese Communist Party. Trump is running in 2024. Trump is going to win in 2024.
But hold on. I think
enough of your audience.
I mean, it's okay. First off, there's obviously going to be a lot of overlap between the way Trump ruled or wanted to rule and the way that Modi does. Specifically, again, both groups targeting Muslims, both groups very strong into sentiments of nationalism, proud nationalists, openly talking about it while vilifying certain groups as the other in order to continue to maintain power, and also to scapegoat them for any of the problems that are occurring within the broader society. But right here, what they're doing, referencing this unique point where it's like, well, not only are the two of them very, very similar, but we're going to have to go forward and look at what the two could be doing. But Trump standing up to China, that's ridiculous. Trump didn't understand what tariffs were. He didn't understand how they worked. He thought he could weaponize tariffs as some kind of posturing to be like, oh yeah, well, I'm the first president that's going to stand up to China by increasing the tariffs on Chinese products. Meanwhile, most people who understood how the process worked were like, okay, so that'll probably damage us a bit too. You understand how tariffs work, right? You're not exactly destroying China's ability to operate and sell these products. Not to mention, when it comes to exporting, their GDP in gross domestic product globally, China has slightly beat America. This is not exactly like Trump was the king of tariffs. I don't know if you remembered, because he started doing the same thing to Canada. When Canada wouldn't go his way, he's like, oh, fuck, tariffs on Canadian fucking imports too now. Canadian steel, tariffs, this. And then Trudeau's like, sure, yeah, okay. Well, that's what you're paying at the point of entry. But sure, yeah. And we'll meet you back, Trumpy. Canadian tariffs on the stuff that we get from America.
Heads blown up.
Well, as soon as you bring up the election stuff, we are completely obligated to address it.
Okay,
we absolutely have to. We'll be deleted off YouTube in 2 seconds because of that conversation. And so, what I'll say is, it's frustrating for me the level of optimism that I don't want to tell people not to be optimistic, but in 2020, and we talked about this in the member segment last time you were here. When my skateboarder friends who work on minimum wage and can't tell you the name of not even one Supreme Court justice, let alone define what it is, are making TikTok videos of them voting by mail, and then I'm going back to my friends, and all of them are fervently supporting Joe Biden. Today, some of these people have left the country.
Wow.
So
hold the crew, the skateboard crew, and some of those guys?
I know a couple people who have already left the country. And it's not necessarily because they were.
I love that. Steve Bannon just being like, wait, what's the skateboard crew, Tim? What are you talking about?
Like, oh no, Biden's so bad. It's more like, wow, this is not a fun place to live. I need to find something better. And I don't think they correlate their actions in supporting Joe Biden in 2020 with what's happening now. So I will just stress, in my experience, we had.
I know you and I disagree with this. I want to tell YouTube that Tim is adamant that Joe Biden won. He's been adamant that Joe Biden. And so it's a deeply held belief of yours.
Look, I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers to everything, but I will say that when we've had our conversations with people like Matt Brainerd several times.
So I would take that as like, oh, fuck you, Steve. I bring you on and you're sabotaging my show. Haha, very funny. Anyways, Steve Bannon is clearly lying. Just want to put a disclaimer out there that Steve Bannon is not saying things that are factually correct. YouTube, if you're listening, blah, blah, blah. Instead of rolling with it.
Times, there's always been, here's what we think, not here's what we know. And so my attitude is, what Republicans have done poorly is ground game. And I'll tell you, I think one of the biggest impacts on the 2020 election was universal mail-in voting, not because of any kind of fraud. I certainly think, like what Bill Barr said, yeah, there's fraud. We don't think there's that. Is there enough? And I've not had anybody come to me. You've got wild and crazy accusations from people like Lindell and Sidney Powell. But when it comes to the more like, we want to do a forensic audit, nothing definitive has come out to the point where it's been laid out.
That couldn't be more factually incorrect. Like this is a non-starter. Even Republican governors have had to come forward and been like, yes, we have done due process, and there's been absolutely zero evidence of voter tampering in regards to the election being fraudulent. It's like that. Everything Tim is saying right now in terms of like there hasn't been a forensic audit. I don't know. Maybe he needs CSI. Maybe he needs cum. I don't know. He needs to do that thing where they like, we didn't know whether or not the suspect had actually cheated in the election, but we took one of these ballots and we found a drop of cum. And now that we have said cum, we can do a DNA test, and now we'll have the forensic evidence as it pertains to finding out whether or not this was in fact a stolen election.
But I will say this. I want
to keep you on YouTube. Let's have that conversation in your silent behind the wall chat or some other time, because I can walk you through from Wisconsin to Georgia to Maricopa County. Not to it tonight, but we'll do. I'll get Navarro and we'll walk you through the whole thing, chapter and verse.
We had Navarro here too.
Yeah,
and definitely
he loved
we should do a big conversation. But I will say this. One thing to consider, absolutely. First, I have my anecdotal evidence being someone from Chicago and knowing tons of people who were just they couldn't tell you what Supreme Court justice meant. They're like, I don't know what that is. And I'd be like, okay, well, seriously, they don't.
Yeah.
These are minimum wage workers. They skateboard. They don't understand or want to understand. But I'm watching these people post videos. One guy filmed himself in first person with his mail-in ballot to go to, and I'm like, these people were they were locked down for a year. The only thing they ever heard was Orange Man bad over and over again. And everything that you're suffering from is his fault.
This is the weirdest anecdotal evidence I've heard anyone, I think, propose in relation to the election being stolen. The Tim Pool skateboarders theory. He's been watching videos online in the skateboarding community of skateboarders who apparently were boarding live POV, streaming, recording, whatever, on their way to drop off the ballots, and are now confused.
Here's what I think happens. When you have a dense urban population, like New York City, where you've got these big buildings with, 1,000 people live in it, you can get two Democrat activists, go door to door and say, see that mail-in ballot, sign it, fill it out, I'll wait. But when you're talking about Republican voters in suburbs...
Or I'll just take that mail-in ballot and I'll fill it out for you.
Perhaps. But Republicans can't do that. You're in a suburb, you're going to go drive door to door. The amount of houses that a Republican on ground game could get to advocate for universal mail-in voting is substantially lower, orders of magnitude lower. Dense urban populations where you don't need to walk more than 20 feet to knock on the next family's door, whereas in rural areas, you might have to drive maybe like 2 or 3 blocks to get to the next house. That is the level of ground game that I think needs to be focused on. When they come out and they say the shadow campaign and here's what we did, I think it's very important you pay attention to that. And keep that in mind moving into the next election. And I agree with Mike Cernovich, too. When Trump came out and started talking about all this fraud,
Never, ever say that sentence out loud. You never have to do it. You never have to start something with, I agree with Mike Cernovich. Never, just erase it from your vocabulary.
It was effectively voter suppression because they convinced people not to go out and vote. So I look at this 2 ways. We've had multiple people on talk about this. I have not been convinced. And then we've also seen the detriment to other.
You know what's fucked is that this was such an easy one. Bannon was basically being a piece of shit. He was talking about stuff that will get him in trouble on YouTube, which is lying that there was a fraudulent election. He's already been banned on YouTube, so he's just definitely flying close to the sun. And then he's doing that shitty thing where you go on someone else's show who has been courteous enough. I mean, props to the Tim Castle or whatever. They brought him on and they ran that risk, and then he started saying the same things that got him banned. And then you'd think Tim would just be like, well, honestly, I'd just rather we talk about something else. As you know, I've just said out loud that this could potentially get me in trouble. And so I'm going to Thanos snap this discussion. That means it's a reference to Marvel films. And Thanos is a character who, again, removes half of all life in existence. So in this case, this conversation is going to be one of the things that disappears. And we can talk about it off camera. That could have been it. right? Instead, now Tim is kind of just showing his hand that he actually secretly believes the election was stolen as well. He's got skateboard theory. He saw some skateboarders, so that's a thing.
To future elections because of the narrative that there's no point. And I think that is something we need to avoid. So that's why I'm kind of like, let's just tell people.
That's why you got to get to the bottom of 3 November. You get to the bottom of 3 November. You saw this in Virginia. We had 95%. See, this is the false narrative of the left, and they can't stand it. They have every branch of government. They have the media. They have high culture, low culture, middle culture, pop culture, universities, all of it. And they're freaked out because the American people now are stepping up and doing this. In Virginia, we had 95% participation as election officials and by poll watchers, 95%. In 2020, 33%. The last gubernatorial race, 27%. The Republicans are not going to allow ever again, not with new laws, we don't need new laws, but to get to the bottom of November 3rd and to make sure that never happens to us again. Okay? You're saying this.
I say it this way.
Remember, last November, in November 2020, we had sweeping victories across the country.
Oh, that's a funny way to end it. So I guess long story short, Tim Pool has a, secret
Trump
belief that the election was not completely on the up and up. That, or he's just willing to talk to Steve Bannon for 6 minutes about whether or not it was stolen. Steve Bannon is effectively predicting that Donald Trump will be elected in 2024. I wish I could say that his prediction was ridiculous, but hey, Democrats, prove me wrong. I mean, you still have some time to do some shit. So get to working. And also, I don't think the Kamala Harris Buttigieg ticket is anything that I'm going to get excited about. More terrified, because I definitely do not want another 4 years of Trump. That was a long 4 years. Whew. Tim is right. Yeah, but on the way you think, right? Republicans cheated in several districts. That's what Tim is wrong and or right about, I guess. The most unbelievable thing in that video was the claim that Tim Pool has skateboard friends. True. That's the biggest lie of all. This
will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.